So when I was in middle school, I started developing anxiety and depression disorder. And as a kid, you don't really understand what those words are, and that that wasn't in my vocabulary. I just thought that there was something wrong with me, which is when I first developed hating myself. Now today's Valentine's Day, and a lot of people are talking about God's love for us, and Jesus' new commandment that we should love one another and so forth. But let's reflect on loving yourself for a second. Now, I find myself self-deprecating quite often. I don't think a day goes by where I don't say, "Why are you doing this?" or "What's wrong with you?" And it becomes such a bad habit, um, very negative, very unhealthy. And if you're like me, you may have Googled anxiety and what the Bible states on that. And if you did, you may have stumbled under a Bible verse, 1 Timothy 6:12, which states, "Fight the good fight of faith and win eternal life." And when we think about the fight, we think about the fight against the enemy, right? And if we allow these negative thoughts in our head, we are losing the fight. But as we know, the way anxiety works, it's anxiety and depression. These thoughts just come upon us. It's no one's fault. I don't want anyone to think that, we're losing the fight because we allowed it into our minds. That we can't control. Here's something that I think we do have an ability to control, though. Back in middle school, when I had that anxiety and depression very strongly, it was so bad to the point where I would actually cry my eyes out, bawl my eyes out the second the alarm clock would ring in the morning. The second, I'm talking immediately, instantaneously. Just crying. Because I was so afraid to greet the day, to see people. And that was a horrible, horrible time. But if I were to look in the mirror and place myself back in that moment, here's one thing I could have done to fight this fight. I could have went to bed a little earlier. Stay with me on this. We all know that we should have about an 8 hours of sleep, right? And we know that sleep helps recharge our batteries and give us our rational thinking back and making decision making more clear and that sort of thing. I was getting maybe half 8 hours. I was getting like 4 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep. So by the time the alarm clock would ring, I was exhausted. Now, I'm not saying that was the end-all fix. If I just went to bed and got my 8 hours, life would have been great. But it would have been a start. Fight the good fight of faith. Now, faith is, a key component of faith is grace. Now, that's what we're taught in the catechism, and grace is a virtue, a supernatural virtue infused by God, right? It's a gift. The ability to say yes to God. A tool for the fight. So we have that. We have the tools. God has given us the tools. We are prepared. What are we doing? Are we doing our part to win this fight? Are we taking necessary steps to win this fight? If we were to look at the definition of love, love is to will the good of another, right? So to love yourself is to will the good of yourself, right? Understand what's bad in your life and take the necessary steps to do what's good. For some of us, maybe those steps are going to bed earlier. Others, maybe it is dropping negative humor, and saying, you messed up, you're such an idiot. Maybe it looks like discipline, just having the discipline to say no to this, that, and the other thing. I don't know. You know yourself. You know the bad. Look in the mirror. Take the necessary steps to do the good for yourself so you're able to win the fight and love yourself. Anyway, that was my Catholic thought of the day. Thank you all for listening. And as always, God bless.